A portion of this video is sponsored by NortonLifeLock. Did you know? The Wii was a hotbed for piracy throughout its lifetime. In a report, the Wii was named the most pirated console of 2010 with almost 26,000 available torrents. The most pirated Wii game in both 2010 and 2011 was Super Mario Galaxy 2, which comfortably cleared 1 million downloads in both years. Not all of the Wii's unofficial content involved bootlegging though. Very soon after the console's launch, an independent website called DYKG hosted flash-based games intended to be played with a Wii remote. Gamasutra even reported on DYKG on November 20th of 2006, just one day after the Wii's launch in North America and before the Wii's Opera browser was even available. DYKG was created to promote smaller developers and help them program games for the Wii's unique hardware. Additionally, the Wii was subject to a lot of homebrew software and hacks. But before we get into that, a word from our sponsor. This portion of our video is sponsored by NortonLifeLock. During our research into obscure facts, bootlegs and piracy, we at DidYouKnowGaming often come across suspicious looking websites that could be harbouring all kinds of malware. But now we can conduct our research safely thanks to Norton 360 for gamers, which helps protect against nasty viruses, spyware, adware and other harmful software. And we know that curious gamers such as ourselves have probably been in a similar situation before. Over the past few years, there's been many accounts of cybercriminals hacking gamertags to steal players' accounts to get their in-game loot and items. Cybercriminals have also been known to use malware to get players' personal information to dox them or invade their privacy in other ways, like taking control of their webcam. Norton for Gamers helps combat these breaches with dark web monitoring for gamer tags, where you'll be notified if they find your gamer account on the dark web. It even has a logless VPN that will hide your IP address and PC SafeCam that will let you know if someone tries to access your webcam. If you want to stay safe on the web, level up your cyber protection with Norton for Gamers by clicking the link below to get a 14-day free trial. Thanks again to NortonLifeLock for sponsoring this portion of our video. Now back to our regular content. An important figure in the Wii hacking community was Ben Bushing-Byer. While Ben didn't game much himself, he bought a Wii after playing one at his boss's home in 2008. Bushing tended to hack everything he owned, and the Wii was a prime target as it was a new piece of hardware that hadn't been cracked yet. Bushing was introduced to other Wii hackers by a co-worker, and they would pass ideas back and forth about cracking the Wii. Meanwhile, Nintendo would include the latest version of the Wii system software on almost every game they released, presumably so players without internet access could update their console. But this also gave hackers a large amount of code to work with. The Wii's central processing unit was a PowerPC chip named Broadway, but hackers were unable to disassemble the Wii's software as PowerPC code. Further experimentation revealed that it was actually ARM code. ARM, which stands for Advanced RISC Machines, is an architecture software often used in lighter devices like smartphones due to its low cost and power consumption. Strangely, the Wii didn't seem to have an ARM chip anywhere. The team soon learned that the chip was buried deep within the Wii's graphics processing unit, named Hollywood. A hacker called Sega nicknamed the chip Starlet as a play on the Wii's Hollywood GPU and Broadway CPU. As well as controlling most of its peripherals, Starlet was responsible for the Wii's security, making it the major obstacle for hackers to defeat. But amazingly, this technical hurdle was overcome using a simple set of tweezers. The hacker Tumbink was able to obtain the Wii's encryption keys from his console's memory by going through the GameCube architecture. Running homebrew code in GameCube mode was easy, thanks to a better understanding of the GameCube. The problem was, running the console in GameCube mode locked away all of the Wii's features. The Starlet chip was also responsible for limiting the amount of memory in use while running in GameCube mode. Essentially, the Starlet would only let the processor see the lower 25% of the Wii's total memory. Important codes such as the common key that allowed the decryption of most Wii content were kept outside of that range, so it couldn't be accessed via the GameCube mode. By shorting some address lines using a pair of metal tweezers, Starlet would be tricked into changing which 25% of the memory was visible. Essentially, hackers could slide the window of visible data to show different sections of RAM. The Wii's memory was not cleared in GameCube mode, merely restricted, and so the hackers could use this trick to map out restricted segments, including the decryption keys. The plundered data was then sent to Tumbink's computer via a serial port soldered onto the GameCube controller port. The hackers chose the name Team Tweezers in honor of this, their first major breakthrough and the first dent in the Wii's armor. Bushing said the amount of hoops the team had to jump through spoke to the quality of Nintendo's security. Decompiling the code was a long and tedious process. With no documentation to guide them, the team had to infer the purpose of each line of binary code by examining and comparing the CPU, GPU, and the disk all at once. Each discovery made it easier to progress. A piece of code responsible for resetting the system in Wii Sports also helped the team understand the same code in Zelda. Team Tweezers were responsible for creating the earliest known way to install homebrew software on a Wii without hardware modifications, the Twilight hack. Named after the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, the Twilight hack exploited the buffer overflow error caused when the console tried to load in an edited Twilight Princess save file. The file was manipulated so that Link's horse's name literally contained a small program. This program is much longer than the game's character limit, so it cannot be entered in the game legitimately. However, the game doesn't check the character limit while loading a save file, so when the game tries to load the horse's name into memory, it can load the program memory, which just so happens to be the next region that the system will execute. The hack runs a boot file from the root of the SD card, allowing unofficial content to be loaded on the Wii. In the wake of this discovery, Team Tweezer's homebrew channel saw its first public release with Beta 7 on May 24, 2008. The channel was intended to let users launch unofficial applications on the Wii, listing them from an SD card or USB mass storage device. Development of the Twilight hack was tricky. Without access to the proper debugging tools, it was difficult to ensure that Twilight Princess crashed in a consistent way. Nintendo began to fight back as well. On June 16, 2008, they released System Menu 3.3, which was designed to check for and delete the Twilight hack. This led to the release of the 0.1 Beta 1 version of the hack, which managed to circumvent Nintendo's fix. It took until System Menu 4.0 to be released on March 25, 2009 for the Twilight hack to be truly overcome. But despite this, the relationship between Team Tweezers and Nintendo wasn't always adversarial. On July 17, 2008, Bushing announced on hackme.com that he'd contacted Nintendo to advise them about a potential security issue, one that would allow pirated Wii games to be played on an unmodified console. Bushing refused to disclose any details about the bug, only notifying Nintendo and asking for an engineer to get in touch with him. The decision was met with some backlash from the community. Bushing received multiple emails, some demanding to know why he was helping Nintendo, some asking him to divulge the information, and some even posing as a Nintendo representative to trick him into disclosing the details about the exploit. In response, Bushing's post was updated to include the addendum, "I did not post my email address here to invite you to debate this with me. Suffice it to say that I have put more thought into this than you have, and when you find your own exploits, you can decide how to handle them." Team Tweezers chose to present this bug to Nintendo for 3 reasons. Firstly, the bug could be presented as a piracy-related concern, allowing them to contact with official channels. Secondly, the bug wasn't useful for legitimate homebrew. And thirdly, it was a design flaw, and so Nintendo were unlikely to be able to patch it anyway. Team Tweezer's attitude towards the bug was reflected of their overall philosophy. They were completely disinterested in piracy, and they refused to enable any bootlegging through their hacks. Bushing wasn't worried about legal repercussions, as they hadn't broken any laws, and mod chips were far more problematic for Nintendo. Bushing expected a response from Nintendo only if the homebrew scene actively contributed to piracy. Unfortunately for Team Tweezers, it wasn't long before the homebrew scene contributed to piracy. On May 26, 2008, the hacker OneInCoco released the Wii WAD Manager 1.0. A WAD is a native Wii file for a game or app. The WAD Manager exploited a bug that let the software work as if it had an official signature, effectively blowing the doors to piracy wide open. It proved to be controversial as a result, and Team Tweezers refused to endorse it, despite members Bushing and Marken being thanked in the credits for the release. In fact, the team took efforts to thwart its interactions with their homebrew channel. In the 1.0.4 update, a feature was added where the homebrew channel would turn itself upside down if it detected the user had modified its contents or installed it using a WAD manager. OneInCoco continued to be a controversial figure in the scene. In September 2008, he released an ISO loader for the homebrew channel, allowing ISOs to run on unmodified hardware, making pirated games easier than ever to run. Ironically, Bushing had warned Nintendo about that exact exploit a few months earlier. The ISO loader was leaked online before its official release, leading to OneInCoco quitting the project. Team Tweezers were annoyed with OneInCoco's conduct. Marken accused those of promoting the ISO loader of using Tweezers' work to promote piracy. He described OneInCoco's apps as thin wrappers around existing code or tools written by others. In a post titled "Thanks One In Coco," Bushing credited the release of the first pirated virtual console release to One In Coco's release of his NAND FS dumper, which exploited the Wii's permission system, letting it read titles on the console. Team Tweezers foresaw their homebrew efforts being used for piracy, which was one of the main reasons they never stopped releasing tools and code for the community. Bushing believed that Team Tweezers not releasing any more information delayed the spread of the piracy by around 4 months. He made an appeal to hackers' morality, saying, "Developers need to eat too," and offered practical reasons for not pirating games on the Wii. He suggested that piracy would speed Nintendo's response to exploits and loopholes and ultimately hinder the homebrew scene as a whole. Nintendo had already proven themselves to be shrewd strategists. In February 2008, Dittel released their freeloader import disc in PAL territories, which let users bypass the system's region locking to play games from all around the world. In response, Nintendo updated the Wii with ISO 37 to block its use, but never bothered to activate the code. Bushing speculated that this was designed to stall Dittel. At this point, the PAL discs had already been pressed, but the imminent threat of ISO 37 would stall Dittel from releasing an NTSC freeloader until the patch had been implemented, but the imminent threat of ISO 37 would stall Dittel from releasing an NTSC freeloader until the patch had been implemented and they could find workarounds. Bushing estimated that if Nintendo were to plug the hole that One In Coco exploited with the NAND FS dumper, it would take months for him to find a way to downgrade the Wii's iOS. The scene's differing philosophies created a rift in the Wii hacking community. Team Tweezer were insular, withholding info and sharing bugs with Nintendo to help steer the scene clear of piracy. However, their detractors saw this as a needlessly elitist attitude, expecting Nintendo to group them all together anyway. The increasing popularity of WAD managers and editors increased scrutiny on the homebrew scene due to its flourishing association with piracy. Complaints also came in from users that edited their Wii files without proper expertise. One common cause of grief was known as banner brick, where a user would attempt to install or change an incorrectly sized banner. This would result in the Wii immediately crashing once it was past the health and safety screen, as though the system files were corrupted. Solutions to the problem were dependent on the user's console revision and whether or not they had homebrew applications such as BootMe installed before the brick. In a worst case scenario, a user may have to send the console to Nintendo to be fixed. The ease of Wii hacking led to the creation of many community mods and homebrew games, the most famous of which is undoubtedly Project M. Project M was a mod for Super Smash Bros. Brawl that tried to bring it more in line with Melee's gameplay. The Project M development team made it clear that they didn't support piracy or permanent alterations to Nintendo's systems. The mod could be installed using a legitimate copy of the game and a 2GB SD card. The project started in 2010 with a relatively humble goal of replicating Falco's Melee moveset in Brawl, but eventually expanded to include Brawl's entire roster, as well as some additional characters like Roy and Mewtwo. The developers were careful to avoid introducing characters that might jeopardize their already tenuous standing with Nintendo. These included third-party characters that may have made Nintendo fearful of legal action, and newcomers to Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS that may have led Nintendo to viewing them as competition. Despite their best efforts, Nintendo banned the phrase Project M on their Miiverse messaging service and put pressure on Twitch and fighting tournaments to limit Project M's exposure. Project M was extremely popular, enjoying 3 million downloads over its lifetime, and was even featured in major tournaments. However, it was suddenly discontinued in December 2015. Did you also know that Nintendo had a similar arms race with modders for the Nintendo Switch? Or that dedicated modders gave a presentation to warn how the DS could be modded to spread malware? For more facts, check out our videos on Nintendo Switch and Nintendo DS piracy and hacking.